All right, hey now, take two of my virtual tour of the Geek Fuzz from PFG Pedals. I am Pete. How you doing? I figured it would be cool to show some people who might be interested and who have asked questions what's going on inside here. So let's start with the basic stuff. First thing I get asked about is this wire here. This is just simply an extra secure grounding attachment to the frame to make sure that there's always a good ground connection to the box that, helps shield from unwanted noise. Fuzz face pedals, these are primitive early circuits. They are highly susceptible to noise and outside interference, so you want to make sure you've got proper shielding going on all around. Next up is the input and output jacks. These are the insulated style of jacks. I use them on these sometimes. Sometimes I use the closed frame ones, or the open frame ones. It really depends on what I'm doing that time. I was starting out doing these positive ground reverse polarity PMP transistor circuits like this, but I can do them with the other jacks too. It just really depends on what I have at the time. But these are very nice jacks. I like using these ones a lot. And there's some cool switching stuff you can do with them. I use stereo ones on both of them, probably because mono ones were out of stock at the supply house. Now we've got the standard 2.1 millimeter input jack. Something I add right here is a filter capacitor, and that is simply to remove some unwanted noise from the AC lines that gets through your power supply. The split switch is a, let me see if I can get you to see that, 3pdt.com. It's actually a kit they sell on Amazon. I know that sounds like terrible, right? But it's really nice foot switches, and it's a good price, and you can get a large number of them in one box. They come with this great little, they come with these great little boxes like this that I can use for storing all the kinds of parts when I'm done. And I just like them. And besides that, the main event is that they have a really great action. It's like a light medium action. It's not super heavy. It's not super light. In my opinion, it's just right. It's very smooth and satisfying. And it comes with this great little daughter board that allows mounting the LED and the current limiting resistor right there. Simplifying and streamlining and cleaning up the install in general. Next, we got, standard 9-volt battery clip, of course. As, all good pedals should, when you disconnect the input jack or connect the DC jack, either way, it disconnects the battery so that you're not killing the battery when it's not being used. If you don't unplug the input jack or at least have a DC power jack in, then the battery is draining whether you're playing or not. That's just a fact of pedals. Next, what was I talking about next? All right, let's go under the board here. First of all, we've got the 3 pots. This would be Fuzz, which is a 1K reverse logarithmic pot. The standard Fuzz pedals come with just a 1K linear pot. The reason for the reverse logarithmic is that it provides a lot more adjustability in the top end. A lot of time with fuzz faces, you basically go to max, and then if you go anywhere below max, you suddenly drop down to like less fuzz than you need. It can be very finicky in the top of the range. So this makes it so that, it starts hitting full around 60% and gradually brings it all the way up. And then you can just gently find that sweet spot where you've got the most fuzz and the least noise. Then we've got a 100K clean pot in this one. That's something that Mike Fuller from Full Tone and Analog Man, they implemented, back in the 90s. And what it does is it acts as a variable resistor in series with your guitar's volume pot. Basically a remote guitar volume pot. So that if you're switching between effects and that you like the sound with your guitar volume rolled off, but you're going to switch this off and then you need your full volume to drive the amp or drive a different overdrive pedal or something like that, it can be a little finicky. So here you can basically use this control to preset the amount of clean, and it's very subtle. You know, right around here is I basically leave it all the time, and I find that's plenty for leads, but still allows me to get a better clean up with the volume knob. But you can go all the way down here and just have it slightly, you know, slightly overdriven. It allows you to unlock a whole bunch of, you know, sounds in between a mild crunch to full-on fuzz, and it's fantastic. And I put them on all the pedals I use. I find it a lot more useful than a bias control. However, I will be doing some with bias controls. I've been getting asked about it, and if you like a bias control, just let me know. I'll put one in it for you. It's not a big deal. I'll replace that pot with a 25K and route it to the board as it needs. The back of the board, and let's talk about these circuit boards I use. These are issue 1 replicas. They're widely available online. I get them from multiple sources, depending on, frankly, who's got them, the best price on them, or who got the right amount in stock at the time. I've had people ask me if I etch them myself, and the whole point is to make this as true to an original fuzz face as possible, while adding the modern conveniences of being pedal board friendly, having a DC jack, yada, yada, yada. So hence why I use these boards. I do sell in my shops on Reverb and eBay. I sell these, you know, natural colored boards that if you need your own boards, you know, I sell them for you. If you want a black one, you can message me. I just kind of got a few of these to play around with. I normally use the normal colored ones. What you see back here is these two capacitors are called Miller capacitors, okay? These are more capacitors that have to do with filtering out noise and stuff and rolling off some high end. Because these are more modern transistors, you know, they figure germanium transistors started out being kind of spotty in the manufacturing. You know, they might make 100 and maybe 10 of them actually are good. You know, it was really like that, you know, 10, maybe 20% yield if you're lucky. Today, I'm very happy if I buy a lot of germanium transistors and 20% of them are usable for my needs. That's excellent results, actually. So, but even then, some of the later, you know, these transistors I imagine are from like the 70s. And, you know, by then the manufacturing had benefited from making silicon, and they streamlined the process. They really got it down. So these transistors, you know, started producing more high frequencies, having less of the capacitance. And by adding what are known as in the industry as Miller capacitors right here, just very low value. I think this is like a 470 picofarad and a 47 picofarad. Anything up to like 100 nanofarad is perfectly, you know, reasonable. And I use them to just adjust how much high end is in, and it also helps to block out radio interference and you know, high frequency oscillation from like switching power supplies nearby and stuff like that. It's just it helps. It's a little tweak that very common. It's just the best way to make them sound great. Ideally you just want to leave them alone, but you can't. You just can't. I want to make the pedal work good, work the best it possibly can, and if I got to modify it to do so, that's what I'm going to do. On here, we've got two of the Vishay BC, formerly Phillips caps. These are like the ones used in the Jimi Hendrix fuzz face. They're the ones used in even like the late 60s and the, you know, 70s Dallas Arbiter fuzz faces. They're excellent capacitors. They're actually friggin' expensive. They're like 10 times the price of, you know, a quality capacitor, you know, like this you might find online, you know. It's crazy. I can get this capacitor for, you know, like you know, 10 for like 25 cents, or I can get, you know, 2 of these for like $4. You know, it's crazy. But I think the sound is worth it. So I have a limited supply of these, and I use them on some of my more premium pedals. If I'm going to use really good transistors, I'm going to put really good caps around it. And that's something to look out for. This is a 1 UF 63 volt, and this is a 22 UF. The normal stock value for this is 2.2 UF, but I suspect they just used that because it's what they had, or they were able to get a lot of them cheap, because with that 2.2 UF, it lets too much subsonic bass frequencies through, below audible, below what speakers can reproduce. And what that does is just it creates a lot of woofiness. It can make the fuzz too boomy, and it can be what a lot of people don't like about fuzz. And so the Sunface from Analog Man, he uses these 1 UF caps, and I find that it's a nice happy medium. It still gives you that traditional fuzz face, warmth, but it cuts out just enough of the bass to make it a little more clearer, especially with humbuckers or like a dark sounding guitar, like some Les Pauls. Very, very good. The great thing about this larger cap, which is a 22 UF 63 volt cap, is that these actually tend to measure slightly under. Most of the ones I got are between 18 and 20 UF. And while that would seem like a bad thing, these caps have tolerances of, I believe, 10%. Back in the day, 20% was common. That meant your 20 UF cap could be as high, anywhere from 16 to 24, farads. Think about it like that. It's, or 15 to 25 even. But some caps have a weird tolerance, where they're like rated for -20 and +50. The reason being, in some critical circuits, it's okay to have a bigger cap, but having a smaller cap is a problem. So they just err on the side of caution and try to make sure they're bigger. The benefit of having this be right around 18 to 20 instead of more like 22 to 25, like some 22s will be, is that adding the larger capacitance adds back in more of that bass and stuff. So by keeping this right around the 18 to 20 mark, I find that's the sweet spot for for a nice clear fuzz tone. Next up, we've got the resistor set here, which I normally on a fuzz face, this would just be 3 resistors: a 33K, 470 ohm, and a 8.2K. Problem with that is that many of the germanium transistors, if they're that 8.2K bias resistor assumes the ideal perfect transistors with no leakage, the perfect amount of gain, everything, So since that never happens, the fixed resistors often result in pedals that sound a little Velcro-y because they're underbiased, or they kind of sound more like a distortion because they're overbiased. And I just skip that whole headache with the fixed resistor and use a trim pot. Very common. Analog Man uses 2 trim pots in there rather than resistors. Some people insist on having the fixed resistor, and you can do that. You can measure whatever this value is works best and replace it with a carbon resistor, but it doesn't really affect the sound that much. What this does is allows you to get the sound dialed in just right. And then say you're, normally play in a environment where it's 68 degrees Fahrenheit, and then suddenly your next show is a desert party and it's 110 degrees out and you're playing at 4 o'clock in the afternoon in the peak of sun. Well, you can adjust for that heat change, because I guarantee you your pedal will sound completely different in those 2 conditions. That's just a fact of using germanium transistors. Then behind that guy, we've got a 4.7K resistor, and that is very adjustable. I use anything here from 470 to 680 to 1.2K sometimes, and or even the 4.7K, 3.3. It really depends on. I use that so that I can set this bias trimmer as close to the center of its sweep as possible. That way you've got adjustability in both range. Oftentimes I end up with this, if I just leave it with the default resistor values, I will end up with the pot either maxed out or bottomed out. And then that means if you need to adjust it in that way, there's no further to go. It's similar to what Analog Man does to tweak his sundial knob. He has that second trim pot down there, and that actually sets the center point of the sundial knob, so that you can lock it into that center point, and now you're right around that 4.55 volt mark. This capacitor is another Phillips capacitor. These are actual new old stock Phillips capacitors, because these electrolytics, new old stock electrolytics, are junk. Don't use them. They're not worth reforming. They're not worth messing around with. They're just, they have a shelf life. They're old. They were never intended, they knew when they made them that they would die someday. And every year more and more electronics die because of their aging electrolytic capacitors. It's just a fact of dealing with them. Fortunately, this is a very low, energy circuit, so these capacitors will last a long time in this type of circuit. But still, you don't know where the new old stock ones you got came from, so it's not even worth it. I get new ones for this. Film ones tend to fare much better, so I use them. Each part on here is tested multiple times to make sure it meets my needs. But these MKC capacitors are also very similar to what Dunlop currently puts in the Jimi Hendrix fuzz face, and they are what Dallas Arbiter was using like in the late 60s and 70s after the early ones that used the mustard caps. Over here we've got the 100K feedback resistor. Now, normally, one more thing over here. Normally, the smaller resistor goes here, and this is the bias resistor would be right here next to the capacitor. The reason I flip-flop these is it's a very old and well-known mod. That's how I get more volume out of it, because when you have the large resistor here on the collector where the sound's coming out, the first thing the sound sees is that large resistor, and it's attenuated. It's like it's seeing a volume pot that's always turned down. So by taking the smaller value resistor from the middle and moving it here, and then putting the adjustable pot or the larger 8.2 or 10K or whatever resistor it would be here, it makes the signal see not as much resistance here, but then more resistance heading back towards the source. So its easiest path of current is to the output. Hence, it raises the output volume. Let me see, anything else here? Oh yeah, back to the feedback resistor. Feedback resistor on this one is 110K. I often use 110K resistors, mainly because I've got a lot of 110K resistors that are slightly under, and I've got a lot of 100K resistors that tend to be over, right around the 105K, right on the edge of that 5% mark. And these ones tend to be right around 105K. So I just use them because they're perfectly fine. So don't worry as much about the lines on here, about as what they actually read. Because these old parts, especially fixed composition resistors, they tend to drift up in value with age. It's just another fact of dealing with old parts. On to the coup de grace, these ASX, in this case, I think this is at 12D, and I can't see it, it's underneath. ASX 12D and 12E. These are killer transistors, absolutely killer. I'm so glad I was able to get some of them because they're getting hard to find. If you check on Small Bear Electronics, they tell you that, they think they're the best thing since the NKT 275, which has been hunted to extinction. And they sell a set of these, just a set of these tested for you, with nothing else, for $60. So that tells you, what they're worth. If I paid $60 for these, this pedal would have to be, $250, $300. It would be crazy. And I don't want to do that. I'm trying to build what is on par with any of the boutique fuzz pedals you can buy, but for a price that's at least half of what they sell at. My mark is if the Sunface is $300 on average, I want to be no more than 150, and that's the goal. But I want it to sound just as good, and I put just as much work into it. Part of my advantage is that I have over 20 years experience as an electrician. I was an industrial and commercial electrician. I started out doing houses, quickly moved into commercial and industrial, and I wired everything from hospitals to grain mills to huge apartment complexes, what you get from that is, the thing is, the skill of wiring stuff is the same no matter whether it's low voltage, whether it's for guitars, for computers, or whatever. So having those skills of knowing how to lay stuff out and route it really kickstarted my ability to get into the pedal world. Trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, did we talk about this switch down here? I think I forgot that little guy. So this is what makes the Geek Fuzz the Geek Fuzz. My original pedal I was just calling Fuzz Without a Face. Funnily enough, because I'm still waiting on my artist friend to finish the art, but also because I want to keep the price down. Once I got a screen pedals and stuff, it's going to raise the prices up. So I'm trying to get as many out there as low price as possible, and I'll always offer the Fuzz Without a Face types, which would just be plain painted boxes. But what this switch does is switches in a second smaller capacitor in series with this one UF. Now, if you know how capacitors work in series, the rule of capacitors in series is that their combined capacitance will never exceed the value of the smallest capacitor. So this is a quick and dirty way to add, the option of a second input capacitor to this board that doesn't have any way to add the switch and stuff on it. And I'm quite proud of figuring that out on myself. I'm sure I'm not the first one to invent it, but once I realized it broke in my head that would work, and I tried it out. I was like, oh, this is fantastic. It's such an easy way to add more functionality to a fuzz face. I mean, this would be a great mod for any fuzz face pedal that you could easily do. You get a single pole double throw switch, the capacitor of your choice, and you can, if you ask me for it, I'll even send you the wiring diagram, but it's very simple. The input goes first from the input jack to the switch. From the switch, it goes around to the clean pot. Remember I said that is like a second volume control from your guitar. So that's the first thing it sees. Then it comes out of the wiper of the clean pot right here and around to the center, to the common pole on this single pole double throw switch. Now this, I think, I guess it is, this is a 0.022, so a 22 nanofarad cap. That's similar to what was in the output, that was similar to the input cap in like the Vox Italian tone benders, which were known for having their brighter, more trebly sound with less bass. And I love that sound, but I also like being able to have the big fat fuzz face sound. So I go for both of them. Why pick one when you can have both? And I was inspired to do this by the Geek Fuzz. Now, the Geek Fuzz has the advantage of being designed from the ground up, so they didn't have to come up with this series switching thing, because they could just, oh, come on. Damn it. My battery's dying. So about time to wrap this up. But anyway, we've got a 0.22. I think this is an Illinois cap or an Erie cap. I forget. But I only use high quality capacitors, and I test them thoroughly. But yeah, so it goes in here, and this middle pole is the input. Now, when the switch is to one side, this pole connects to this one. So it routes it through the 22 nanofarad cap, and then through the 1 farad cap, which basically does nothing, just passes through, and then it goes into the circuit. When you switch it the other way, it just connects the input right to the quote-unquote output, for this switch at least, and it just bypasses this cap, very effectively removing it from the circuit in the simplest, most elegant way I could imagine. And that is really the heart of the Geek Fuzz pedal. Now, then, mounting hardware, I use these little stick-on standoffs. Simply, it's a way to save money. It's the same thing Sunface does too. But once I discovered that they fit in here perfectly, and these are spaced out perfectly, it's just a very easy way to mount the circuit board. And the best part is, it doesn't drill any holes in the box, doesn't require any additional hardware, and you can take them off and put them back on as many times as you want. All you got to do to remove the board is squeeze that little tab down with a pair of pliers and then pull the board up, and it'll come right off. In fact, I've probably had this one out 3 or 4 times now. Yeah, I think that's about it. I'm trying to see if there's anything else I could talk about. I guess we can talk about the knobs and stuff. So, we've got the, here, I'll plug it in to see the light. Put a cord in it. and boom, you see the nice bright blue LED. You got this high quality toggle switch. All the pots are alpha. These are the MXR style skirted knobs. MXRs are my favorite pedals. They're the pedals that inspired me to start building fuzz pedals. You know, getting the MXR Classic 108 was my gateway drug into the fuzz face world, and I love it. I like these big knobs because they're easy. If you want to, you can reach out with your foot and make adjustments with them. You know, that's what's really great about them. And this little knob I just thought was cute, so yeah, I got a little knob there. And the housings are just I don't paint these housings. These come pre-coated, so it's actually a good quality paint job instead of the mutilation that I would do if I tried to paint it myself. I'm no artist. I'm a construction guy. I build stuff, but making it pretty, I can make it pretty in here, but the outside is a lot harder for me. The best I can hope for do is to try to get everything nice and straight and square and hope for the best. So if you're still listening at this point, God bless you. Thank you for watching, and you know, check out my shops on Reverb or eBay, or hit me up directly on Instagram, PFG_pedals, or pfg.pedals@gmail.com, all lowercase all the time. Anyway, Petey Grizz out. Take care.